Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the adventure begins. Long before we saw the origin story of the man based on the toy who traveled through time and battled the evil Emperor Zurg, Buzz had a different story in regards to where he came from. Back in the beginning of the 2000s, Disney created an animated series based on the world of Buzz Lightyear called Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, developed by the same guys who would later be known as the creators of Kim Possible. It wasn't really an iconic show at the time, but it had a pretty good run with 3 seasons, and nowadays, it does have a decent-sized fanbase who share a nostalgic fondness for the series. Even I remember as a kid watching some episodes when they were on TV, and I wouldn't say they left as much of an impact as the Toy Story movies, but they did provide enough entertainment and pretty colors to keep my attention. That, and it was cool seeing the Star Command crew at Walt Disney World when you finish Space Ranger Spin. It's like a nice little childhood throwback there. But for those who do remember Star Command, there's a high probability that they also remember the pilot movie, The Adventure Begins. Back then, it was a bit of a big deal. Toy Story 2 was still fresh in people's minds, Tim Allen came on board to play his iconic role, and it was the first time that audiences get to experience Buzz as a Space Ranger. At least, more than just that little video game at the start of 2.
Oh no! No!
So now that the review begins on The Adventure Begins, is this movie in the ranks of a galactic hero? Or does it barely even qualify as a space cadet? Let's find out. The story. As the movie begins, it gives us this 90-second moment of the Toy Story characters preparing to watch the movie, which was actually made by Pixar, and I'll admit that it's kinda cute. Especially back when this came out, when you see the toys using the exact same VHS that you were using to watch the movie. It ain't spectacular by any means, but it's fun to watch Rex fanboying over getting the new Buzz Lightyear movie.
Somebody put it in the tape! Put it in! My tiny arms can't reach!
Okay, hold your horses, Rex.
Put it in!
Gosh, it's stuck.
Ah!
Just kidding.
Once the actual movie starts, though, let's just say that it's most likely not worth the hype that Rex tried to build up. Keep in mind that its primary purpose is to be the pilot of the animated series. In fact, this is the first 3 episodes combined into one and given some minor upgrades to justify its existence as a standalone movie, like having Tim Allen voice Buzz instead of the show's leading actor, Patrick Warburton. Oh, on a side note, Patrick is still in the movie, but just as the voice of the Little Green Men, which I did not expect.
If Zurg blows up XR, we can put him back together!
And honestly, that is exactly what it feels like, a pilot. While there may technically be a full storyline here, what it tries to do is introduce us to both the characters and the concepts to prepare viewers for what they'll be in store if they choose to watch the show. It presents how the team met one another and how they ultimately got together in order to fight Zurg.
Good work, people.
And robot?
And robot.
Of course, that's what pilots are supposed to do, right? Well, here's the problem. My job is to judge this not as a pilot, but as a feature film on its own. This is a review of The Adventure Begins, not the entirety of Star Command. And when looking at just The Adventure Begins, it's noticeable that there's a lot of elements that are missing in the writing. Everything in the script, like the character arcs, the story structure, and the tone, are all basic when it doesn't offer much to the audience. Sure, some could say that there shouldn't be a lot to expect in something that's only over an hour, but this is not a matter where the running time is the problem. There's obviously more that we can learn about what the film is presenting us, but it rather saves most of it for the series instead. Granted, I will give the picture that it does try to deliver unique world building with the parts that Toy Story fans are familiar with. One One of the few good things that this movie did is how it takes the elements like being a space ranger, the Little Green Men, and Zurg and expand those ideas into its own universe so that it plays around both with the sci-fi genre and what can sound like a fitting lore for Buzz. However, when you take the Lightyear aspect away from this, you end up with a generic teamwork story with an extra good conquers evil moral on the side, where Buzz learns that it's more efficient to work with a team rather than to work alone, even if he was so reluctant beforehand. It's a very simple narrative, and I could say that it's virtually transparent with the things that they try to keep as a surprise. It may try, but there's nothing that you cannot see coming. I mean, even with the knowledge that there's going to be a whole show following this is kind of a spoiler to how the relationship between these characters will ultimately go. I'll give it that it does provide some decent ideas. Too bad that it doesn't have a good story alongside them. The animation. I know that even if this is based on a Pixar property, nobody should expect that we'd be getting Pixar quality animation here. Except for the opening because, well, that's literally Pixar animation. But within the movie, this is another indicator that this is a pilot that used the first 3 episodes of the series instead of being its own animated feature. For the most part, this is the standard TV animation made during the late 1990s and early 2000s. The best way to describe the animation here is that this is limited animation, but not in the regular definition that you're familiar with. I don't mean it in the way of Hanna-Barbera where the designs are abstract and the movements are mostly static. Actually, I don't find the look here to be all that bad. The designs take the familiar look of Toy Story and translate it into 2D, and keep the look simple so that it gives the animators more room to play with the expressions of the characters and not shy away from its cartoony side. The same can be said with the character animation. While not the strongest to come out of Disney, it does well to have their movements and poses be interesting, kind of dynamic, and help emphasize their personalities.
Well, I'm on a routine and inspection of the canooter valves, and, yep, everything looks good up here.
As it is technically television animation, at least it does its job. Sure, there is a lot of room for improvement, but it's not necessarily worth complaining about. It looks like a Buzz Lightyear cartoon, and that's enough to accomplish its mission. But what about the limited comment that I made earlier? If I'm not referring to the animation itself, then what is it? Well, that's more regarding how it feels like it's trying to bite off more than it could chew. As it is about Buzz Lightyear's life as a space ranger, the movie tries to be more action-packed and filled with battles and chase scenes where the Rangers fight off against monsters, possessed minions, and of course, Zurg himself. As much as it may try to be grand, the animation prevents it to capture the feeling it wants to accomplish. Like, it lacks intensity or the real feeling of danger in their circumstances, resulting it to not feel as exciting as it may think it is.
Get to the ship! Blast off!
But Buzz!
That's an order! We'll meet you in orbit!
Self-destruct in 45 seconds.
That's what I find to be the biggest issue with the animation because, technically, this is supposed to be a big selling point for the show, right? To see Buzz battling bad guys in epic adventures? If the visuals aren't able to make those scenes engaging, then that's a major selling point of Star Command that isn't working, which can reflect badly for both the movie and the show. However, I'm not ruling out that the animation here is overall bad, especially when the backgrounds are honestly impressive. They match up with Buzz Lightyear's aesthetic with the whole Tomorrowland-style futuristic look, and even the colors fit well with both the theme of Buzz Lightyear and space adventure. Is the animation in the league of the Toy Story films? Obviously not, but for what it is, it did get the job done and does succeed in looking like a Buzz Lightyear show. The characters. As I said before, the point of this movie is to introduce the characters of the series. That doesn't necessarily mean that this alone can give you the time to actually get to know them. Sure, you do get some of their background, but there's not much that you're getting from their personalities. Beginning with Buzz himself, he is the captain of the Space Rangers who is traumatized by the death of his longtime partner and friend whom nobody could ever suspect to be evil and secretly working with Buzz, Warp Dark Matter. Because of that, he refuses to work with anyone else on his missions, but it would only be a matter of time that he learns that he can't stop Zurg alone. Basically, Buzz is exactly who you'd expect as the typical traumatized protagonist. He's at the top of his league, he has to inevitably confront his fear, and then overcomes it to become a better person. It's also worth noting that Buzz really takes his job seriously to the point where he feels unnatural. When he was created for Toy Story, he was meant to be like a parody of those typical sci-fi captains like Buck Rogers or Star Trek's Captain Kirk, where that movie was kind of making fun of how overdramatic they can be. In The Adventure Begins, however, it's like if Buzz becomes exactly who he's parodying, taking the stereotypes of these people and just unironically become that without any self-awareness.
But why? What's he gonna do with it?
I don't know exactly, but I believe that even now Zurg is hatching his most diabolical scheme yet.
As for his crew, they're very straightforward of the type of members that they are. Sure, they may explain a bit of their backstories, but they're mostly irrelevant here. Mira is the rebellious kick-ass woman that can be as stubborn as Buzz, XR is the robotic assistant that later becomes a wisecracker, and Booster is the geeky aspiring space ranger that finally has his opportunity, as well as Commander Nebula, who is the Space Ranger's hot-headed boss. On the other hand, there are some that do have some depth where the results may vary. The Little Green Men explain how they all act like one entity with the help of an orb called the Unimind, which is also the movie's MacGuffin. But then you have Agent Z, where the evil Emperor Zurg is the straightforward antagonist of the picture. Z is like Zurg's Darth Vader, who is the best weapon against Buzz, especially when he knows Buzz's every move, and his true identity is shrouded in mystery, where you never know who he could actually be, and can't possibly think that he could be associated with the guy that everyone presumes to be dead that's literally named Dark Matter!
My name's Dark Matter. Who's surprised here?
Anyways, I want to emphasize that the problem with the characters is mainly because of the way that they're written. The materials that the script gave them is generally weak, so there's not a whole lot that they can do to present their full potential. I say this because the actors are certainly not to blame for their setbacks. I'll give this credit that the actors here did a pretty good job, despite working with some bad writing. They're able to help deliver the characters' personalities, make some of the jokes a little funny when they're usually weak, and they can sometimes make the viewing experience fun. Of course, people will enjoy Tim Allen being Buzz, but listening to Zurg enjoying how comically evil he can be is just another example of how Wayne Knight is such an underrated actor.
Launch an alien assault on the planet of the Little Green Men. Excellent. A chance to use this. Ooh, the flamethrower.
I'll give it that the movie provides some entertaining acting, but if you're expecting the characters to do a bit more, then you'll have to watch the show for that. This may be the beginning of Buzz's adventure, but it did not really leave a good first impression. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, The Adventure Begins, is not a movie. It's a pilot meant to establish the backstory of the series. When watching this as a movie on its own, it's a weak animated feature. At the most, it can provide some fun voice acting and passable animation, but there is still the factor of a weak script that caused a boringly generic story and forgettably bland characters that result in a subpar experience. Sure, it can try to expand the world of Buzz Lightyear, but compared to what we have now with the Lightyear movie, this ultimately feels like an inferior product. I'm sure there are some people who do see the value in this, like this is worth watching for those who grew up with Star Command and want to revisit it for nostalgic purposes. Those people will definitely have fun. But for anyone who wants to explore the Toy Story franchise beyond the movies, I say this is worth watching, at least to say that you've seen it, but I do recommend to not set your expectations high. But if you want something that is worth high expectations though, then all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. There's a lot of videos like these that I made that are guaranteed to satisfy what you're looking for. Trust me, I go infinity and beyond on these things for you guys, and all I ask in return is subscribing. There are worse direct-to-home media Disney movies out there, but this is a sad, strange little film, and it has my pity. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Russell Ray Young for his amazing support on Patreon, which allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including asking me to go and review Buzz Lightyear of Star Command: The Adventure Begins. And I just want to go and make one quick comment of the fact that while I do remember watching Buzz Lightyear of Star Command as a kid, now that I have rewatched The Adventure Begins after all these years, it did serve a reminder and a bit of an explanation as to why I don't necessarily remember much of Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. That I just remember watching it, but I don't necessarily remember much of what happened in the show. Now, I'm not saying that Star Command is a terrible show or anything like that. There's just not necessarily much that's really memorable or that it really stands out from my memory in terms of like what happened in there, or like it didn't necessarily leave that much of an impact when I was watching it. Like maybe the most that I did remember from Star Command is that there was that one really hot villainess that had that giant planet head. And then there was also Zurg, whom, because of Wayne Knight's performance, he was probably one of, if not the best part of the show because of how funny he is. And other than that, unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot that I do remember. I am not saying that it's a bad show, it's just not necessarily a show that I really remembered much as a kid. Maybe I would one day have to go and rewatch the entire series itself to like really justify that opinion, but for now, it's just, well, not the worst thing that I've seen, but I'm sure pretty soon I'm gonna forget it. But anyways, now that that is officially over, I can finally go and move on to the next review in the animation hat. Oh, and by the way, before I go and pick the next review, I would like to go and say that if you guys would like to be like Russell and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, and by the way, they are uncut versions of it. I didn't manipulate it to go through all the copyright systems on YouTube or whatever. Like, these are actually different than what you would get here on YouTube. Then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. Alright, so let's go and pick out the next one. Let's see if we got... Oh, well, I got two, so... There we go. I ended up getting two in my hand, so I have to go and make a choice. So anyways, with that said, the next review shall be... Oh my god, okay, this is a short title. There's not much in here. Oh no, is this what I think it is? Oh! Oh no! Oh no! Oh dear, I gotta look into this movie. Oh dear, oh dear, 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 dear. Okay, okay, now I just want to clarify right now. I've already seen this movie before, and it's not a bad movie. Like, I'm just gonna say right now, it's not really the fact that it's a terrible movie, why I'm dreading this.
It's the fact that, how can I put this? It's one of the nastiest animated movies that I have seen. Like, I'm probably gonna have to do some extra work in the editing so that I would probably have to go and censor a whole bunch of stuff. But, yeah, I don't know, like, what kind of hint that I could give from this, but let's just say that, yeah, this is definitely among one of the most disturbing animated features. So, yeah, I know that I'm pretty much vague with this little hint, but brace yourselves, people.
Oh, please tell me you got that.
Got it.
Excellent. Add it to my collection.